And it's time for Lefties Losing It. And let's start in New York City, where communist Zohran Mamdani is poised to be the next mayor. And he thought it was time to really focus on the true victims of 9/11, his family. Grab a tissue, folks. This is rather emotional.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Yeah, it's devastating, folks. It really is. I mean, his poor aunt had to take a couple of cabs. I mean, how devastating for the Mamdani family. And that's if you believe him. And frankly, I don't. After every Islamist terrorist attack, there is such a focus on stamping out Islamophobia. Yes, the leftists propping up the Islamists will come to rue that day. Let's hear now from Zohran Mamdani intern Arzu Malik, who is calling on Muslims to be gangster and jihad.
And the true believer knows that none of this is in vain, that this is all jihad, that this is all ibadah, and that this is all counted for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the conversation of doxing, the conversation of getting arrested and suspended, I think it's time for Muslims to start to say, all right, so what? Do what you want. I'm gonna do what I gotta do, because it's about time to do that. How gangsta are you? That's just my question. How much are you willing to do it? And I know everyone has their own risk levels, but at the end of the day, that's a question to ask ourselves. How committed am I to this? To what extent of my personal material gains am I willing to sacrifice for this bigger noble cause?
Let's go to another failing city, crime-riddled Chicago, which has been ruled by Democrats for decades and decades, and where the current mayor, Brandon Johnson, is triggered by factual terms like illegal immigrant.
We don't have illegal aliens. I don't know if that's from some sort of sci-fi message that you wish have had. Well, listen, the legal term for my people were slaves. You want me to use that term too? So look, let's just get the language right. We're talking about undocumented individuals that are human beings. The last thing that I'm going to do is accept the type of racist, nasty language to describe human beings.
Now let's have a little Hollywood input. Actress Jenna Ortega was asked about who her heroes were and gave this rather incoherent virtue signalling response. Is she okay?
Who's your hero today?
Well, my mom will always be a hero, but another hero of mine today, I don't know, I'm quite gravitated towards the people of Palestine and the way that they speak up, and, you know, the way that they're continuously using their voice no matter how much the world seems to ignore them. It's very important and it's very commendable, and you know, I would like to lift and raise their voices as well.
Now to a rather generously proportioned woman who seems to think white people are lazy, dirty and violent. I can only hope this is a parody, a prank. Surely no one can be this boldly racist.
So just white people in general, I'm tired of you mother. I'm tired of your incompetence. I'm tired of your laziness. I'm tired of you not washing your on a regular basis, and then we have to be susceptible to that. I'm tired of you having babies. I'm tired of y'all raising and birthing and raising serial killers, pedophiles, mass shooters, and all this, and then you tell black people that we're violent. Everything about violence, we learned it from you. So you're the root cause of it.
Now, it would be uncharitable of me to list some crime statistics right about now and some demographic breakdowns, but just imagine if the word black was substituted for white there in that crazy rant. Now, I didn't think me praising Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be on the cards, but here we are. 2025 has been a wild year. Here is the Hollywood star and former California governor dropping a brutal fact check on CNN's Jake Tapper. Now, despite being a former Republican governor, Jake would have thought he was on safe ground with Arnie, given he is a full-blown TDS case. But no, Arnie surprised us all. Watch what he says when Tapper tries to blame Republicans' redistricting efforts and calls it cooking the books.
This all started because of redistricting in Texas, and this was Trump pushing Republican-controlled states to throw out their current congressional maps so as to cook the books, so that it is less likely for Democrats to retake control of the House during the next year midterms. I mean, is it fair to argue that do you believe that the Republican Party is starting this?
No, Jake. There has been gerrymandering going on for 200 years. There is such extreme gerrymandering going on that in a state like Massachusetts, it has like 40% of the people voting for Trump. They have 0 representatives. The Republican Party has 0 representatives sent to the House. Think about that. In New Mexico, 45% of the people voted for Trump and voted Republican, and 0 is sent to the House. 0 representatives from the Republican Party.
You can just see Jake's little heart breaking into 1,000 pieces as Arnie betrays him with the truth, with cold hard facts. Joining me now is Newsweek's senior editor-at-large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel, Josh Hammer. Josh, tell me about the gerrymandering, the redistricting. It just seems crazy to me that you can have a state where 45% vote Republican and they don't get a single member in the House.
So, Rita, first of all, what year is it? I mean, is it the year 2005 where Arnold Schwarzenegger is back in the news? I mean, it's really quite funny. It's doubly funny for me, as the case may be. I actually just got back to my state of Florida. I actually was in Arnold Schwarzenegger's home country of Austria, of all places, for the past week. So this is really kind of deja vu all over again. But look, he's right. He's right. All parties do it. There are actually many Democrat states that do it a lot worse than others. I actually know this firsthand, Rita, because going back in 2016, in the Republican presidential primary, I actually was a delegate on the ballot in Illinois' 7th congressional district. So I studied the state of Illinois' maps very well. These maps are to call them hooks and crooks, I think, would be an understatement. They are wiggling, they are wagging, they're zigging, they're zagging. It's total nonsense there. They'll go down to like half a mile wide, and then balloon out to 200 miles there, just trying to make sure that the party in control has as many seats as possible, as the former governor of California, Schwarzenegger, was saying. Now, this goes back, as he also correctly said, to the origins of the republic. The name gerrymandering comes from the early American statesman Elbridge Gerry. He literally lived over 200 years ago. So this goes back a very, very long time. Long story short, everyone does it. Everyone does it, and everyone's done it for a very, very long time. So for Democrats to kind of, try to play the moral high ground, we saw that in Texas a few months ago, earlier this summer, where Greg Abbott and the Texas legislature were trying to redraw their maps there. They were saying, oh my God, it's a threat to democracy, as if you guys don't do it, as if Democrats don't do the exact same darn thing. Now, legally speaking, Rita, there are real limits on the ability of the courts to police this behavior. It's typically viewed as an inherently political question best left to the courts. There are limits on racial gerrymandering in particular. There's actually a very interesting Supreme Court case. They just heard oral argument in that case about a week ago. It's very hot off the press. Could get a very fascinating ruling on that. But traditionally, the courts have been pretty hands-off on this. It's a fundamentally political question there, the red states versus the blue states.
Well, who does it better? Because the allegation is that the Democrats have mastered this. They've been doing this in a rampant fashion across the country. Are the Republicans playing catch-up here?
I think they are. The good news, Rita, is that some of the leading red states in the country, including my state of Florida, are doing a pretty darn good job of playing catch-up. So Florida has added numerous Republican congressional seats just during Ron DeSantis' gubernatorial tenure. State of Texas under Greg Abbott is doing very much the same thing. But if you look at the leading blue states, California, Illinois, New Jersey, states like that, a lot of them are frankly just comically gerrymandered. You look at the map and you just want to laugh out loud at like how these actual congressional maps look. Now, this is relevant for U.S. House representation. It's relevant for the decennial once every 10-year census when it comes to how much funding states can get for the feds for various programs. So it has real ramifications there. Democrats mastered this art a very long time ago. Republicans are indeed playing catch up, as they all too often are, I might say. The good news, Rita, is that at least in the leading red states like Florida, Tennessee, Texas, those states are indeed catching up.
Now, Josh, tell me about the absolute mass meltdown we've had over Donald Trump gifting the American people a ballroom, a beautiful ballroom, he would say. This addition to the White House will have zero taxpayer dollars spent on it, with Trump and other donors paying for the enormous construction cost. You'd think this wouldn't be grounds for a massive meltdown, Josh, but it's everywhere. Even on our 9 papers in Australia today, the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age are carrying pieces about this as if it's some horrible misdeed by Trump. It is one of the more bizarre controversies, I've got to say, of this second term.
You know, Rita, you and I are both in the news business, and every so often a story comes up, and I just ask myself, why is this a thing? Like literally, why are people talking about it? I mean, here in the United States, we have some pretty big issues. This is actually one of the longest government shutdowns already in United States history, thanks to Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. We have Donald Trump, who's currently in Southeast Asia on a very, very important foreign policy trip when it comes to everything from peace between Thailand and Cambodia to trade with communist China. We have this whole brewing controversy when it comes to this president's admirable willingness and ability to take out drug cartel smugglers down in the Caribbean all the way down to Venezuela. There's a lot going on in our own hemisphere, but I mean, the notion that this would be a story, that Donald Trump remodeling and granting the White House a new ballroom. I mean, don't you guys have anything better to talk about? I mean, like literally, don't you have something better to get your panties all up in a wad about? I mean, it really makes you think sometimes, Rita, that I mean, Donald Trump could eat a piece of stale cheese and he could issue a particularly loud bit of flatulence in the wrong direction, and the people would say that it is the imminent incoming jackboots of the Third Reich. I mean, what is wrong with you at a certain level that like this is what you're choosing to live and die in? But you know, facetiousness aside, just to be serious for a second here, you know, the White House is, among other things, the president's home, and presidents going back since time immemorial, since George Washington. Well, he didn't actually live in the White House, but starting since the White House was actually inhabited by the presidents there, they all remodeled it to some extent to their liking because, again, it is a home. It is not a big deal at all. The left surely has better things to care about, I would like to think.
And you would think that the White House should have a ballroom, given the functions they host and the world leaders, the dignitaries who come through daily almost. It's obviously something that would be beneficial to the whole setup. And, you know, people joke that if Donald Trump cured cancer, people would abuse him for putting doctors out of work. And this is almost akin to that, because here, without taxpayer funds, a beautiful ballroom is going to be built. It's owned by the American people. It's not owned by Donald Trump. And yet they're finding ways to have an absolute hissy fit over it. Crazy stuff. Now, Donald Trump is setting a blistering pace in Asia for the summit of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Within 6 hours of landing in Kuala Lumpur, the president announced trade deals with 4 countries, met regional leaders and held talks with the Brazilian president, and he's presided over signing of a peace deal between Cambodia and Thailand, Josh. There's a lot happening there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a blitzkrieg, isn't it? So first of all, I mean, he deserves tremendous credit for getting this peace deal between Thailand and Cambodia. You know, frankly, Rita, there have been so many peace deals that he has negotiated over the first less than a year as presidency. It's genuinely hard to keep track there. But Thailand, Cambodia was definitely one of those that kind of snuck in under the radar. So good for him for getting there, being there in person to preside over this. The big question I think a lot of Americans are paying very close attention to, at least from my vantage point, is when Donald Trump actually goes to meet with Xi Jinping. That's going to happen imminently. They're going to have a full-blown discussion over issues of trade between the United States and China. This is one of the great questions of our time, I think, from an American perspective. There is some sort of healthier trade relationship between the United States and our arch geopolitical foe, the communist Chinese. Is there something that is a healthier relationship that can possibly flow from this? I genuinely am not sure what the answer is. I definitely know that I have been deeply skeptical of the way that bipartisan elites have sold the American people down the river when it comes to offshoring in China, when it comes to just stripping out the industrial base of the American homeland and embedding the Chinese Communist Party's intellectual property thefts, their currency manipulation, all these horrible things there. So what will Donald Trump actually be able to do? China's been tough. I mean, Xi Jinping is doing a very hard sell right now. He has the sword of Damocles of possibly invading Taiwan, which would be a total disaster, certainly, for the Indo-Pacific. So that's really fascinating, and I think that's very much what I think many others are paying very close attention to this week.
Well, he not only arrived in Kuala Lumpur with a dance-off, introduced some new moves to his repertoire, but he was also introduced with the Rocky theme. Have a look at this. What will China make of the reception the president is receiving from Asian countries during this summit?
Well, you would like to think that they would be somewhat cowed. You would like to think that they would be somewhat sobered up by the fact that Donald Trump is being welcomed as a hero in Southeast Asia, not particularly far from China. But Xi Jinping, Rita, is a fundamentally revolutionary figure. Xi Jinping, when you look at what he is doing to the Communist Party, when you look at the purges of his top-ranking military brass that he has done just over the past 2-3 years, I mean, he is now purging more military generals than I think even Mao Zedong himself reached over a similar time span. He is really consolidating power there. He is not a fan of the United States. He is not a fan of Donald Trump. So I would like to think that they will be sobered up a little bit by this grand welcome that Donald Trump got in Malaysia with the Thailand and Cambodia deal, place like that there. Unfortunately, I'm not entirely sure that I expect that. It's going to be a very tough trade. It's going to be a very, very tough negotiation between the United States and China there. Ultimately, though, Rita, and here's the key point, the United States has more leverage. The United States fundamentally has more leverage with China. We are the stronger country. We are the stronger economy. The Chinese economy has all sorts of fundamental flaws when it comes to the real estate market, when it comes to the ruinous ramifications of their one-child policy finally coming to roost when it comes to declining demographics. So they have all sorts of structural flaws. As long as Donald Trump kind of keeps his head level here and kind of tries to reprise the art of the deal, I'm pretty cautiously optimistic about what this could result from.
Now let's go to New York. The mayoral race there is heating up with Zohran Mamdani, the likely next mayor. Isn't he going to be giving us rich content for many years to come if that happens? But Josh, a different story, very different story in New Jersey. The governor race there is fascinating, and you're looking at the numbers. Could New Jersey become a red state, Josh?
Oh, it's entirely possible. First of all, New Jersey has had Republican statewide officials in the not so distant past. I mean, let's recall that Chris Christie was a two-term, and at least at one point, he was a fairly popular governor. I mean, before the whole Bridgegate scandal and all that, but at one point he was actually a pretty popular governor there in New Jersey. But New Jersey, Rita, it's a fascinating state because there is no single massive city in New Jersey. It is a very suburban state. So I think as a lot of these Philadelphia suburbs, these New York City suburbs have started to sour on the Democratic Party because, frankly, they value quality of life issues such as a secure border, such as tamping down on crime, such as increasing real inflation-adjusted wages there. They have soured at this current woke iteration of the Jasmine Crockett AOC Democratic Party. So New Jersey's been trending red for a few years now. They almost actually voted for the Republicans back in 2021. I would not be the least surprised if they can actually pull it off in just a week or so here in New Jersey. I'm not gonna confidently predict a Rita, but I think it's actually going to be really, really close. New Jersey easily could be the next state to genuinely flip red. I think Kamala Harris only won it by about 5 points, give or take. It was a genuinely pretty close race last November.
So interesting, given its proximity to Manhattan. You could have such wildly different politics so close to each other. Before you go, I want to ask you about this Harvard University resident dean who's attacked police, white people, conservatives, even defended threats against President Donald Trump. And this was before he was appointed, not that long ago. This is a report by Fox News. In 2020 social media posts, Gregory Davis wrote, "You should ask your cop friends to resign since they're racist and evil." He also posted, "Something to keep in mind, rioting and looting are parts of democracy, just like voting and marching. The people will be heard." There you go. Rioting and looting is just like voting and marching. Josh, when is Harvard going to learn? And these posts are from 2020. It isn't exactly a long time ago.
You know, sadly, Rita, this is hardly the only instance of recent Harvard professors going wild. There was actually an insane story that happened on one of the Jewish holidays. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Rosh Hashanah, but it might have been Yom Kippur. It doesn't matter. But there was a visiting Harvard Law School professor who went to a synagogue just outside Boston, a very heavily Jewish area. It was either Brookline or Newton, Massachusetts. and fired like a pellet gun or a Nerf gun in a symbolic act of protest at the synagogue for what exactly? I mean, for being like Zionists or occupiers, I mean, all these various left-wing buzzwords. And to my knowledge, that professor has actually not yet been disciplined. So Harvard is actually dealing with just utter insanity on multiple fronts. Now, Harvard has been really kind of taken to the woodshed, frankly, from Donald Trump. The Trump administration has done a really good job of trying to exact concessions from Harvard. Harvard had this 300 to 400 page memo where they basically admitted where they've erred in recent years there, and they pledged to do different going forward. I guess the question is, are you actually going to do different going forward? Because thus far, in the 2 to 3 months or so since that memo was released there, I mean, we've had numerous troubling data points there. Ultimately, I entrust that the DOJ Civil Rights Division, under the excellent leadership of Harmeet Dillon, they're going to continue to, I think, to hold Harvard's feet to the fire. And let's see what happens, I guess.
Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time.